Recording in progress.
Dola benje sanje doba yo sanje jada doba jamana janjo bata dani jazo je dani jazo ibe zamanje dola benje sanje doba sho oh nice to see once again. So today today we will discuss about the what causes to take the rebirth in the lower realm, and also the method to purify the negativities of the negativities of taking birth or rebirth in the lower realm.
I do have a questions about the previous teaching.
Okay, sure.
So the last time you mentioned about the universal I, the I that go to take the rebirth to move on to the next life. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that? You know, what is the universal I? What is it?
That's a very good question. Yeah, very good question. At the same time, very important to understand. Very important to understand this. Okay. Oh yeah. So so that is very important important question. Of course, a very important subject. You know, very important subject, and also very important to understand this fully. So in this regard, yeah, this the great master Tsongkhapa also try to explain on this issue, what really is the universal I, right? So when we talk about the universal I mean we all do have the I, the I which comes from the past to the present, from the present to the next life. So what really goes on life after lifetime is the I. It is the I. So because this I pervades all the three times. So therefore it is called universal I, right? It is called universal I. So then at the same time we have the for example, right, the I, the I of this life, the I of this life. So the I of this life, it does not go to the next life. And also there's the I, I of the past life, the I of the past life, the I of the past life. For example, in our past life, we may have taken the rebirth as a human being, or God, right? So in our past life, we have taken the birth as a God. So there's a I, the I, I am a God. There's a I, So this I, when the physical aggregate, when the physical of the body, when the body of your former life, that is God, when that the body of the God cease to exist, the I also cease to exist. right? Now, if the I of the past life cease to exist, what comes from the past life to this life, right? Now that is the I, the what we call as universal I, right? Universal I. So this I, because this I remembers the past life, right? The I that we have, the I, we better say the I, mm, the I which I have, the I which I have, and the I of this life, that is separate, that is totally different, totally different. The I that I have within me, this goes to the next life. The I of this life does not go to the next life, right? Because when our body, at the point of dying, when our body cease to exist or cremated, the I of this life also cease to exist, because the I of this life, the body of this life, just as the body of this life is the body of this life. Similarly, the I of this life is the I of this life. So it does not go into the next life. Now, so therefore, the I that I have, the I, we call self, the self that I have, the I that I have, that comes from the past life. This I remember I of this life, the I of this life, right, cannot remember the past life. But the I that I have, the self that I have, now remembers the past life, right? So there's a huge difference, huge difference. One is, which the I that I have is, I have pervades the three times, the past, the present, and the future, right? So therefore, the one that which goes life after lifetime is the I. It is called universal I, universal I. So, so this I now, the question arises, now in a day-to-day life, sometimes, we do a lot of, good action, right? A positive action. Sometimes we also do a lot negative action, So the imprint, the seed, the seed of the positive action, the seed of the negative action, it is need to be stored. It needs to be stored, it needs to be stored somewhere, and that somewhere should be very stable, should be very stable. So all the imprints, all the seed of your karma cannot be stored on your body, because as we die, the body also gets cremated. So if the imprints are stored in our body, then when the body gets cremated, the karma is also vanished. Now who experienced the karma? So that, because there's some problem. So now all the imprints, all the positive imprints, all the positive, all the imprints of the positive action or negative action is being stored in our I. That is the universal I which comes from the past to the present life to the next, from present life goes on to the next life. So in this very I, all the imprints of our karma is being stored. So therefore, we say, sometimes we say, who experienced the positive karma? I experienced the positive karma. Who experienced the negative karma? I experienced the negative karma. So it is the I. So that I now goes from life after lifetime, right? And relating to this, the I, we also talk about the continuum of mental consciousness, right? Mental consciousness. So the I, the I or the self is something, as I said, there is not a single phenomena which is independent, which is solid, which is independent. So that I should depend on something, should depend on many factors, should depend on many factors. So this I that I have, the self that I have, the I that I have is also dependent on something. What it depends on? It depends on the continuum of mental consciousness. So therefore, when I go to next life, mental consciousness, the continuity of the mental consciousness also goes to the next life. So these together, I and the mental consciousness, the continuum mental consciousness can never separate. Can never separate. Where there is a I, there is a mental consciousness, continuum mental consciousness. So when these two, the I, which is dependent on the continuum mental consciousness, goes life after lifetime, right? Life after lifetime. So relating to this, there is many, questions can be raised, So we won't go into this. So I think this is enough.
Yes, so just to sum it up to make sure that I understand it right. So actually we have a two I. So one temporary I and one is the universal I. And so the universal I is like like the canvas, and it depends on your mental continuum. And then the universal eyes will manifest. The temporary eye depends on the status of your mental, right?
Yeah.
It's like that.
If we can make the things simple, right? Simple. The I of this present life, it depends on something. The I of present life depends on something. What it depends on? The I of this present life, or the self of this present life, is dependent on the five aggregates of this life. The I of this life is dependent on the body of this present life. Now I have the universal I, which is dependent on something. What it depends on? It depends on the continuum of mental consciousness. Right. So this is the universal I is dependent on the continuum of mental consciousness, whereas the I of this present life dependent on the body of this present life. Right. So when the body get destroyed, the I also cease to exist. When the body of this present life destroyed, the I of this present life also cease to exist. Right. So the universal I, when it goes to the next life, who also goes to the next life, is the continuum of mental consciousness, which goes on in the next life. Clear? I think you understood.
Yeah. So it's so just a little bit one. So the universal I, is it something related to the emptiness or the Dhammakaya? Is it?
Yeah.
Is there any evidence to the Dhammakaya or emptiness? Universal.
Yeah. So this we are talking about is, now it relates to, for example, we all aspire to achieve Buddhahood, right? We all aspire to achieve Buddhahood. Yes. And we also aspire to achieve the nirvana. And we also want to achieve the higher rebirth, for example, like human rebirth in the next life. Now, since Buddha came onto this world, this kind of investigation, many great, many great kind of many great Dharma persons, and also many great philosophers, they came, what is the I? We talk about I want happiness, I wish happiness, I do not want suffering, I need to go here, I need to go there, I need to get education, But who really is the I? So this question is being raised, and a lot of in many great early masters, they put a lot of thought, to really investigate what really is this I that we are talking about. Enlightenment, that we want to get rid of all the suffering and pain, right? So this I if we were to achieve the enlightenment, now we investigate the I, where is I? Where is this really I, because, we can talk about mountain, we can talk about the external, house, the trees, external, things like the trees, the rocks, the houses, the flowers, all this, right? But then, when we talk about achieving nirvana, when we talk about achieving Buddhahood, the outside phenomena, the outside things have no feeling. They have no feeling. They have no kind of like emotions. So now who has the emotions? I have the emotions. We have the emotions, right? We have the emotions. So, and who also desire peace, who desire long-lasting happiness? It is the I. It is the I, right? Now, it is the fact. It is a fact that we want to achieve happiness. We want to get rid of suffering and pain, right? Pain. Again, we talk about I. It is the I who want happiness, do not want suffering. If we try to investigate that I, now what really is that I, right? Because I don't want problem. I don't want any trouble. I don't want any pain. I don't want any suffering. But still I suffer. Why? Why do I suffer? Even though I want happiness, sometimes, I don't get happiness as I desired. So therefore, it is not that much helpful. It is not that much helpful to ascertain, to try to understand the emptiness of other phenomena. It is not that much helpful to understand the emptiness of the other external things. Because finally, we are talking about something who has feeling. We are talking about something who has feeling. We are talking about us who want to be liberated, who want to achieve the highest form of enlightenment, right? The nirvana. Then, in this respect, it becomes very important to understand the nature of the emptiness of the I. It is important to understand the nature of the emptiness of I. Therefore, in the Buddhist teaching, in the Buddha's teaching, the first attempt is to recognize, understand the emptiness of yourself, rather than trying to understand the emptiness of other things, right? So we try to understand the emptiness of ourselves, right? Now, what is the emptiness of ourselves? If we do understand the emptiness of ourselves, we are the one to get liberated, right? We are the first one to get liberated, because I am suffering. Other external phenomena, they are not going through any pain and suffering. They have no emotions. what it has to do with me. Finally, it has to do with me. Finally, if I am the one to achieve enlightenment, then it becomes important to relate the understanding of emptiness to yourself, to myself, right? Myself. So therefore, now what is the emptiness? What is the emptiness? And what is the emptiness of myself? We can talk about the emptiness of ourself and the other phenomena, right? So that is again something very, very important to understand, very important to understand. So we may sometimes, in some way, emptiness, when we talk about emptiness, sometimes, sometimes we try to philosophize, right? We try to make it more complicated, we try to make it something, more difficult topic. Now, if you try to bring the understanding of emptiness into the experience level, how to bring the understanding of emptiness into the experience level. Now, that is now sometimes, when we talk about emptiness, oh, what is emptiness? So emptiness is something, related with a feeling, something emptiness. When we talk about emptiness, it has to do with the feeling, right? Now, because it is empty, I is empty. I is empty. Empty of what? Empty of what? Now, empty of I is empty. If it is empty, empty of what? Now I explain. Now, for example, right? I'm having a very difficult, for example, right? I was going through such a difficult time, such a unimaginable, difficult time, unimaginable difficult time, that sometimes we lose the hope, we lose the hope of surviving, right? Such a very difficult time. When going through such a difficult time, now, for example, like when we are demoralized, when we lose the hope, or when we develop such a very strong attachment, or when we develop such a strong hatred to somebody, at that moment, at this occasion, in this very moment, we try to check, we try to see how the I is manifested within us, right? So at this point, very strong experiential occasions, the I is manifested something very solid, very independent. Is so this independent I, when the I manifests very strong, such a something that you can hold on, something that you can catch, this I never ever exist if you confirmed, if you convinced that this I does not exist. The non-existence of this I is the emptiness. This is the emptiness. This is the real emptiness. This is the emptiness of I. Once you get closer to this, sometimes emptiness may look also a little bit difficult, but in reality, if you bring it to the experiential level, then once you are able to identify the absolute and solid appearance of I, this I, once first you need to identify this I, and then once you are able to identify 100% confirmed and convinced that this I does not exist, when you are greatly convinced, 100% convinced that you have that this I no longer exists, in reality you have realized emptiness. Once you realize emptiness, all the destructive emotions, all the thoughts, negative thoughts, delusions, dramatically reduced. So so therefore, in the instruction, the manual instruction on meditation on emptiness, the manual instruction on meditation on emptiness, ascertaining the emptiness of I. The ascertaining that the emptiness of I is not that difficult. Not that difficult. What really makes difficult is trying to take the opportunity, trying to take the chance to identify this grasping of independent I. That's the problem. When this I, the solid I comes, it goes instantly. It disappears instantly. That's the problem. That's the problem. So similarly, when somebody, when someone, now, we are in the public, we are among the lot of friends, your good friends, and then one of your friend, he get up and he point the finger at you and humiliated you. At that point, what is the reaction? What is the reaction of the I? At that point, independent I, oh, very, very independent, solid I you develop. At that point, determined, convinced that this I does not exist. Once you are 100% convinced, you identify the object of negation. Once you are able to object of negation, then confirmed and convinced that this I does not exist. Once you are through reason, you are able to identify this grasping or independent self, independent I. At this point, you are closer to emptiness. You have realized the emptiness. We have realized the emptiness, right? The only thing that need to do and put more, time is to identify, right? And also, another example is, in front of thousands of people, you are being praised. You are being really praised for your great work, for your good personality, for your many, for your many good qualities. You are being praised. At that very point, again, the independent I, very solid I comes in your mind. Very solid I. Now, this solid I does not exist. So, a firm convinced that this solid I does not exist is the emptiness of I. So that is the emptiness. So once you realize that independent I does not exist, here you go. We are closer to emptiness and we realize emptiness. Once we realize emptiness, that is the turning point. That is the turning point to making all our spiritual journey successful and smooth, very smooth, right? Our whole perception of the world, the external world, totally changed, right? So this is all about identifying. Now we talk about identifying the I. So in order to identify the I, in order to identify that solid I, again, intellectual understanding alone is not enough. Now, what we need to do on our part is, now we need the supplication of your lineage guru, the lineage gurus. We need to create a tremendous amount of merit and also purification practice. Once all this done together, and also need to get familiarity with those, the wonderful teachings, the wonderful teachings explained by, Master Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Master Chandrakirti, also including Master Tsongkhapa. You need to familiarize with the text on emptiness, and also with the support of merit, purification, and also the Guru Yoga practice. With these three, sooner or later, we are able to identify that independent I, identify that independent I. Once identify that independent I, now you are closer to emptiness, realizing emptiness. Once emptiness is realized, then it is, as discussed about, this is once the turning point of one's life. All the spiritual practices really do make a deep sense. Then one will come to understand nirvana is possible, enlightenment is possible. So yeah, this is all relating to universal I. Okay, now we will read from the page. Okay, page 30, right? If you have the text, it's on page 30. Your mental continuum does not cease after your death. It must take rebirth. There are only two migrations for rebirth, the upper and the lower realms. If you are in the hell without respite, you will have to stay there with your body indistinguishable from the hellfire, right? So it talks about the hell without respite. I wouldn't go much into detail. Hell without respite, that is the most, in the Buddhist, in the Buddhist teaching, hell without respite means this is the most torturous hell, because the beings in this hell realm, the fire from the four directions, come, and then, one do not identify what is the fire and what is the being. Only the only thing that you can confirm that there's a person is that inside the fire, a very pathetic voice come. At that point, you are convinced that there's a being. Look at this. Then in the milder hell, in the milder hell, such as hell of continued resurrection, you are killed, and then you are killed and then receive hundreds of times each day. You continually suffer torments. So in the hell without the continued resurrection means so the main cause for taking rebirth in this hell is mostly hatred, hatred and anger. So the beings with those extreme hatred and anger are born in that the hell, where all the huge gathering, they then quarrel and fight against each other, and then they try to hit the weapons in their hands, try to kill each other, and then to the extent of collapsing all of them. and then the voice from the sky say revive again. Again they revive back, again do the same thing again and again, over again and again. So this is the hell of continued resurrections. You are killed and then receive hundreds of times each day. You continually suffer torments. How could we endure this if we cannot even bear to put our hands in a fire now? And we will suffer in this hells the same way that we would suffer from such heat in our present bodies. We might wonder, maybe the experience of suffering is different. But that is wrong. Suffering is different and easier, but that is wrong. Now, at this point, it talks about the, the main causes for taking the birth in this lower limb. It talks about, the main causes of taking the birth in the lower limb. What are the main causes? Again, the main causes for taking the rebirth in this lower limb is negative action. Negative action. So negative actions are the main causes for taking birth in this lower limb. Right. Now, the question is, the real question is, it encourage, the teaching here encourage us to meditate on the suffering of the lower limb. So that is something, again, very important, very important. We are being encouraged to meditate on the suffering of the lower limb. But why? Why do we need to meditate on the suffering of the lower limb? Why do we need to contemplate on the suffering of the lower limb that really do matters heavily, do matters very importantly? If we were to understand the Dharma teaching in the right context, if we were to really put into the practice, Buddha's teaching into the practice, it does makes huge difference. This is the point. This is the point. This is the essential points. Why? If we are seeking the enlightenment, if we are seeking the Buddhahood, anyone who is seeking the Buddhahood or enlightenment should need to meditate on the suffering. Without meditating on suffering, it is impossible to achieve the enlightenment. Again, anyone who is to achieve the nirvana, the total cessation of the pain and suffering, that person also need to meditate on the suffering. Without meditation of suffering, it is impossible to achieve nirvana or moksha or emancipation. Total freedom from suffering. Anyone who is seeking the favorable rebirth, the higher rebirth, like human rebirth, like the rebirth of the celestial beings. Anyone who is seeking, again, need to meditate on the suffering of the suffering, without which the achievement of enlightenment, the achievement of nirvana, the achievement of higher rebirth does not make sense. Now, here, the Mahayana practitioner, any Mahayana practitioner who wish to achieve enlightenment, who wish to achieve Buddhahood, need to meditate on suffering. Why? How? Because in order to achieve Buddhahood, in order to achieve enlightenment, one need to cultivate bodhicitta, one need to cultivate bodhitam. Without cultivating bodhitam, it is impossible to achieve enlightenment or Buddhahood. In order to achieve Buddhahood, in order to achieve and cultivate the bodhitam or bodhicitta, one need to train in compassion. One need to train in great compassion. Great compassion. In order to cultivate the great compassion, one need to meditate on suffering. Because without meditating on suffering, how can we develop compassion? Great compassion, right? So therefore, when I think about the suffering, when I think about the suffering of conditioned existence, the suffering of the suffering of conditioned existence, the suffering of pervasive suffering. For myself, by meditating on this or reflecting on or contemplating on this pervasive suffering, what it has to do with me, it has to do something with me. What it does is it helps me to develop a sense of renunciation. And not only this, how much I'm tormented, how much I'm going through suffering, based on the unbearable of your suffering, you are equally able to develop the compassion for others, that you wish to separate the suffering of others based on your own experience. Based on your own experience. So therefore, one need to meditate on suffering, one need to contemplate on the suffering to cultivate the compassion for others, the renunciation for yourself. Clear? Now, those persons who really wanted to achieve, they are some practitioner, I cannot take the huge responsibility of freeing all the beings, just, for my own, benefit, for my own peace of mind. I cannot take that huge responsibility to freeing all the beings. The beings are limitless, limitless as space, So that's something, my huge responsibility. I cannot, do that, much. Just for the time being, I can, at least I can only do something benefit for myself, right? So for that, now, anyone who seek the liberation, who seek the nirvana, right? Nirvana, the total cessation of suffering. For those persons, again, you develop the wish. Those persons need to develop the wish to achieve the nirvana, moksha. To achieve the moksha, to achieve the nirvana, again, you need to develop the sense of renunciation. Again, in order to develop the sense of renunciation, one need to practice in the three trainings: the training in morality, the training in ethics, the training in concentration, meditative concentration, the training in meditation, the training in wisdom. So when we go through these three trainings, now in order to go through these three trainings, to make your training, these three trainings, such a powerful training, again, one need to meditate on suffering again. One need to meditate on suffering again. Right. Now, now the bottom practice. Now the bottom practice is now those people who want to achieve the higher rebirth. I want to achieve higher rebirth, the next life. I want to achieve higher rebirth. Even in order to achieve the higher rebirth, I need to achieve the higher rebirth. In order to achieve the higher rebirth, what I have to do? In order to achieve the higher rebirth, one again need to meditate on the suffering. Why? In order to achieve the higher rebirth, I need to meditate on the suffering. Because I need to get out of from the suffering of the lower limb. I need to develop the wish to free myself from the suffering of the lower limb. In order to free myself from the suffering of the lower limb, we need to develop the fear of being going through the experience of the sufferings of the lower limb. The fears of being going through the suffering of the lower limb, right? Now, in order to develop that fear, we need to meditate on the suffering of the lower limb. Without meditating on the suffering of the lower limb, there's no way that we develop the sincere wish to free ourselves from the suffering of the lower limb. Once we are able to develop the fear, then we are able to develop the wish to get out from that suffering. Once we develop that wish, we make all the effort, we make all the method. We need to rely on the method. We make all the effort to make it possible that I will not go into the lower limb in the next life. To do that, I need to attain the human form again. Right now, I am human form. I have human form. Again, I need to create all the causes and conditions to make sure that I will not go to the lower limb. In this way, we are able to create all the causes and conditions, take a favorable rebirth in the next life. So, whether it is the spiritual training of the person of the small scope, the low, medium scope, or the higher scope, equally need to meditate on the suffering. All these three beings. Now the another question comes. Another question comes, right? If that is the case, by meditating on the suffering of meditating on the suffering of the suffering, what it has to do with me? Meditating on the suffering has nothing to do than making me unhappy. Sometimes we may wonder, we may think like this, right? Sometimes this kind of thinking arises in us. I don't need to do, it makes me unhappy, I have my own problem, I have my own trouble. Why should I do? Now here, by meditating on suffering, we really serve a huge purpose. It really brings a huge benefit, right? The great master, Master Shantideva says, there are many qualities of suffering. One of the qualities is that it dispels the arrogance. Number two, another quality is that it helps us to develop compassion. Number three, it helps us to refrain from negative actions and commit it to positive actions. So what these three lines, Master Shantideva say, whether it is the spiritual training of the person of the small scope, or whether it is the spiritual training of the person of the medium scope or the lower scope, all these three beings need to refrain from committing negative action and committed to creating all the positive actions. So this is Master Shantideva says. right? It, as he says, it really, for this person of the lower scope, it helps to, for the person of the lower scope, it helps to dispel the arrogance. For the person of the medium scope, it helps to cultivate the sense of renunciation. For the person of the high scope, it helps to develop the loving compassion for all the beings. Right. Now, again, so that meditation on the suffering, I personally, believe it is something unique. Now, in the teaching, it talks about, it encourages us to meditate on the suffering of the hell, suffering of the hungry ghost, suffering of the animals. Right. Now, if we were to meditate and contemplate on the suffering of the hell, suffering of the hungry ghost, suffering of the animals, how do I meditate on the suffering of the hell, suffering of the hungry ghost, suffering of the animal? What are the benefits? What do I get benefit by doing all these things? Right. Now, here, by meditating on the suffering of the hell, you get 4 qualities. We receive 4 qualities. We receive 4 benefits. Sorry. We receive 4 benefits. The first benefit is our patience. We develop the patience. We develop patience. Our practice of patience is increased. Our practice of patience is increased. Right. Benefit number 2, it helps us to develop the sense of renunciation for yourself. It helps us to develop the loving compassion for others, especially those hell beings. Number 3. Number 4 is, it really do help us in observing, in guarding, observing the law of karma, the law of karma. Our wish, our trust in the 3 jivas is so pure, so sincere. So there are a lot of benefits. So when we talk about practicing dharma, so all this understanding really do lay the foundation in doing something dharma. Once dharma practice really something really powerful and really deep. Again, when meditating on the suffering of the hungry ghost, it helps us to develop the compassion, love, the renunciation, your observance or guarding the law of karma, observing the law of karma, practicing the law of karma, really sincere and pure. And number 5 is, one's practice of generosity, giving, is enhanced. The animal, by meditating on the suffering of the animal, what it has to do with us is that it helps us to cultivate compassion, love for others, develop a sense of renunciation for ourselves, and our observance of the law of karma, guarding the law of karma, is pure. Your faith and devotion in the 3 jewel is pure and sincere. And finally, we really develop a deep sense of contentment in our life. No more complaints. Right. Now, if these are the benefits, if these are really the benefits of meditating meditating myself on the suffering of the lower limbs, hell, hungry ghost, animal. Then how do I meditate? That is the question. Now that really is the question. How do I meditate? Right? How do I really meditate? Because we already know that the feeling, when we talk about the feeling is powerful. Feeling is powerful, right? So, because the feeling is powerful, we need to develop a kind of mental state, which make us experience the suffering of the hell. How to do that? If you try to visualize one buffalo, or one deer, one deer eating by a tiger in front of you, if you visualize, and then how am I going to meditate on the suffering of that deer who is eating by tiger, right? Who is eating by tiger? Just by this tiger, the pity, the poor deer, the pity, how pity it is, the deer is, to some extent it may help, for it may help for your own practice. But the real one is, no, this is not the way of doing meditation on the suffering. The real one is you're transformed. We transform ourselves into the hell being. We transformed. In this regard, meditating yourself, being a hell being, being a hungry ghost, being an animal, this kind of way of doing meditation is not something, it's not my idea, right? Not my personal view. This kind of meditation, I really personally feel is really powerful, really true, really powerful. In one of the Lamrim teaching by the fifth Dalai Lama, the Manjushri's words, in the Manjushri words, he recommended doing this kind of meditation. And doing this kind of meditation, many great masters highly praised it, because it has full of potential for you to transform, for us to transform, for make transformation, complete transformation of ourselves. I personally believe this really is powerful visualization. So you see, lot of great deal of benefits coming by doing this kind of meditation, right? This kind of meditation, not that I'm looking at this suffering, the suffering hell, that I'm here, not that way. I myself visualize that I'm helping, I'm going through all this form of suffering. What it does is it really develop a very strong, sense of fear, that fear is not a negative fear, that is positive fear. It develops a strong sense of fear, positive fear. Based on this positive fear, you develop a strong urge, strong wish to get out of from this suffering, the suffering of the hell, the suffering of the the hungry ghost, suffering of the animal. This is the way of training. This is the way of transformation, right? This kind of way of doing meditation, I personally find really amazing, really wonderful, amazing, and mesmerizing. So then similarly, just as hell being, we also visualize ourselves a hungry ghost. hungry ghost, right? So then, because hungry ghosts, they go through, even without, the food for years and years. So in this way, yeah, many good qualities are, we are able to develop many good qualities. For example, even, for example, there's a fasting practice, Avalokiteshvara Nyungne, Nyungne, it is called Nyungne. In Tibetan, it's called Nyungne, fasting practice. Why do we do fasting practice? What is the purpose of doing the fasting practice? In the fasting practice, we are encouraged not to eat for 2 days. We are not encouraged to eat, drink some, water or maybe some juice. Why? Because in the fasting practice, you feel thirsty, you feel hungry. I mean, not thirsty, you mainly feel hungry. When you feel the hungry, by feeling the hungry, and also due to the many of the powerful visualization, many of the negativities of taking the birth in the lower limb is purified. That is the reason of doing the fasting practice. So in this way, the main purpose is to let us to feel the pain of the lower limb, to feel the pain of the lower, to feel the pain and suffering of the lower limb. To do so, the best thing is to transform ourselves into these kind of beings, hungry hell beings, hungry ghost, and animal, right? Okay, then let us read. Yeah. Now, if reborn as a hungry ghost, you will not be able to find so much as a drop of water for years. If you find it hard to observe, if you find it hard to observe a fasting retreat now, sometimes the fasting retreat is really also difficult, because you're not to take any food, right? So Pramod Rinpoche say, if you even if you see, or if you find fasting practice difficult, how could you endure such a rebirth? The rebirth in the hungry ghost. And as for the animal rebirth, take the case of being a dog. Examine in detail the sort of places where they live, the way they have to go in search of food, and the sorts of food they eventually find. Do you think you could possibly bear living that sort of life? You may feel the lower limbs are far away, but between you and the lower limb is only that you can still draw the breath. You can still draw breath. So it's not something far away. The next life, even far away, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, and this very far away, I'm not going to leave this world soon, I'm energetic. I'm energetic. I'm still young, I'm not going to leave this world. But Rinpoche say, something like, that is not the case, only some conditions takes our life, and then when some conditions takes the life, the next life is right between your breath. Who knows, maybe the morning, once breath come first, or once tomorrow morning come first, is a big questionable. So this is the reality. As long as we remain uncritical, we never suspect that we are going to the lower limb. We probably think that we more or less keep our vows, perform most of our daily recitations, and have not committed any serious sin, such as killing a person and running off with his horse. The trouble is, we have not looked into things properly. We should think it over in detail. Then we would see that we are not free from choose whether we go to the lower realms or not. This is determined by our karma. We have a mixture of virtuous and non-virtuous karma in our mental streams. The stronger of these two will be triggered by craving and clinging when we die. When we see that it is non-virtue, and the degree of strength is determined by the force of the motive, the deed, and the final step. Thus, although we might think we have only done small non-virtue, their force is in fact enormous. So I will explain this later. I think this too much explaining. But I try to, I try to touch all the important points. I try to touch all the important points so that generally we believe that if you don't put into practice, that is a different case. That is exception. If we were to put the dharma into the practice, then the deeper your understanding is, the profound your practice is. So, right. So in this, because of this, I try to explain, go a little bit into detail, much in a deeper way, so that it help us to do, to reflect and to contemplate on the meanings. So then, yeah, I think I will stop. Yeah, I won't not talk much more. If you have any question, I'm happy to answer. Like,
Then so we have questions.
okay, yeah.
So what is the difference between
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so the question is, what is the difference between the consciousness and our mind?
Consciousness and our mind.
Yeah, mind and consciousness. What is the difference between those two?
Consciousness is a bigger term. Bigger term. When we talk about the mind, mind really refers to the we talk about the primary mind, primary mind, and then we have the secondary mind, right? Now, for example, right, when we talk about our mind, for example, right, for example, right now, I'm reading, right? I read something, So when I read something, reading something, at that point, I develop a kind of mind. That mind is called, that mind is sensorial mind, my eye consciousness, ear consciousness. So these all are, mind. These are all mind, right? So because these are all mind, and at the same time, these are also the consciousness. Now, for example, like, many of the emotions, like, the love, for example, the love, the sense of caring others, the compassion. So these, the love, the sense of caring others, the compassionate attitude, the devotion, all these are now secondary mind. Because secondary mind. Yeah, one time I will talk more about that primary mind and secondary mind. So these are secondary mind. At the same time, now, like, most of the emotions, for example, positive emotions like, the love, sense of caring others, the compassion. So these are also the mental consciousness, and also, like, for example, like anger, the hatred, the attachment. All these are mental consciousness, right? So all this mental consciousness, but we don't call this our mind, right? Mind. So when we talk about the consciousness, both primary mind and the secondary mind are consciousness, right? Consciousness. So this is, yeah, again, it's a vast topic. There's a separate topic, discussed. There's a separate, text, discuss about this. What is, because when we try to explain, try to understand what is consciousness, what is mind, we go through all this, understanding. It is difficult to just say, few words in just, few minutes. Difficult to get a deeper understanding.
Excuse me, Lama, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a questions about the eye. It's very difficult to understand the lesson, but I want to make sure that my understanding is a real, is the true one. It is right, like as I understand, is the universal eye. It means that it's been followed to us from this life to the next life, or maybe from the past life. And then the mental eyes mean like we have the body. So which mean like it is right when I understand like all of us have the same the body, but the different mind of the universe I to make up to the to become have the difficult to the have the different life, like I have the different life of others people. So if if we meditate about the lower realms, like it means that we are thinking about the universal eyes of other people. It is right. I feel it quite confusing about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Therefore, what I said is, of course, it may, for you maybe in the beginning also a little bit difficult. For myself also in the beginning difficult, but then I put a lot of energy and time try to understand this, trying to make Jazongaba so much delighted.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Maybe I need more time to read and to think about this because I feel it's quite difficult.
Oh yeah. This is actually also once we try to get a good understanding. It really in a way we are delighting Master Tsongkhapa, Master Tsongkhapa. So in the case of Master Tsongkhapa, he wrote a really a marvelous text on this because when we talk about the eye, it also relates heavily on emptiness teaching. It relates heavily on the emptiness teaching, and also when we talk about the eye, mostly uh, for example, right, uh, everything, everything, everything functionable, functionable. We try to, negate, we try to stop, stop the independent appearance, of each and everything. We try to stop it, right? When we try to stop it, when we try to stop it, there's a danger. There's a danger that the functional also, we are also trying to, remove. For example, this glass, right? This glass does exist. This glass, no question, it exists. But the way that we perceive this glass, the way we perceive the things, now it take a different way. Now we see all this glass is something very independent, Oh, this glass, something out there, right out there, very nice glass, right out there. So because the way we perceive this glass is diluted, they're diluted, right? So when we try to, remove this independent solid glass, there is a danger that you also remove this functional glass, right? For example, therefore, this one time, one time Master Tsongkhapa was meditating, he was meditating on meditating on the emptiness, emptiness. So Manjushri told him, yes, try to meditate on emptiness, very good, really very good. But at the same time, don't try to, remove just the mere functional, when we try to remove this independent, now also, there's a danger that we also remove this glass too, this eyeglass too. What we need to remove is independent glass. What we really need to remove is try to stop the appearance of independent glass, solid glass. As we try to stop this independent and solid glass, we also, in a way, we also maybe sometime, falling into the extreme of nihilism. We also try to remove all the glass altogether, so nothing is left. Then if you do that, then we are falling into the extreme of nihilism. The law of karma does not exist. Nothing exists. Right? Things does exist. Right? Things does exist. Now, for example, we believe that this glass, yeah. What is this glass? We say this glass, yeah. Why we call this glass? There's a handle, right? Handle. There's a glass. There's some, frame. All this make a glass, right? Now say, now I break it. I break this, take out. I break this glass. This one. This one. This one. There's no glass. Now there's no glass. Now are we going to say there's no glass? No, right? So this glass, yeah, still, we need to leave some imprint, positive imprint, just, understanding, okay, understanding will come later. At least we leave some positive imprint is highly, beneficial. So this glass, if you take this part, no, there's no glass, right? But still I use it, I weigh it, right? I weigh it. Now this glass exists. This, how does this glass exist? Because my mind, all this come together. This before is take out, right? You take out all the parts. Now you put all together, and then because of the color of this glass, because of the shape of this glass, and then I call this is glass. This is glass, right? This is glass, because all the many conditions come together, many causes conditions come together, and it becomes glass, and you call it this glass. So who make this glass? Who who designate this glass is my mind. My mind designate this glass.
Yeah.
Right? Designate because of many conditions. I call this is a glass. But then, yeah, if you take it out, there's no glass. Yeah. So yeah, this is very, very important to understand, so that, sometime, when we try to establish, when we try to ascertain the emptiness of I, because we have, since beginningless lifetime, our grasping is very strong, we're grasping here. Even when the I, we ascertain that there is no I. We understand. Even though we understand, we ascertain, we convince the emptiness of I, but still there's a grasping follows. So therefore, Buddha taught emptiness of emptiness. Buddha taught the emptiness of emptiness.
Yes.
Because sometimes we are not, satisfied, even when the emptiness is established, again, since beginner's time, grasping, always, try to grasp at something. So Buddha also said, even the emptiness is emptiness.
Yes, thank you, Lama. Thank you for your explanation.
Okay, so emptiness is just like the ocean, and then all the phenomenal things is like the wave, right? So everything just manifests from the emptiness, and then it does exist, but not exist in the way we think, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the ocean and the wave, and the ocean in the emptiness, and the waves come from the ocean, and also and then we think that the wave exists like separately, but actually it's the way, the nature of the way is the ocean, right? So likewise, so the emptiness and all the phenomenal things can is inseparable, and it's at the same nature, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's good understanding. Yeah, so every phenomena has the aspect of ultimate reality and the conventional reality, right? Conventional reality. Just so everything arises from something like emptiness, emptiness. So then, yeah, finally, yeah, we have long way to go on the teaching on the emptiness, and when we talk about teaching on emptiness, so then dependent origination really makes a huge sense, to gain the much more deeper, deeper understanding and deeper conviction in the emptiness. The dependent origination is the supreme method. Dependent origin is a supreme method, so like this. Yeah, so yeah, the two sides of the same coin, two faces of the one coin, right? So like this, so each and every phenomena has, conventional aspect and ultimate aspect, just like, the waves, arise, comes from the ocean. Yeah. So yeah, later on I will, when we reach the teaching on emptiness, yeah, we talk more on this, that's really something important. So then, yeah, was the 8:30, no? Okay, then we will better stop. I will do dedication. Jawadi Yudoda Lama Sanju Gune, Duachi Yamaleva, the Sala Goba Show, Chanjo Sanjo Rimboche, Magepana Gigi. Kiwanyamba Mebaya, Gune, Gonda, Beva, Yo, Indata Rimboche, Magepana Gigi, Kiwanyamba Mebaya, Gone, Gondo, Beva, Yo. And they were my Jere sewa denze jazo yin shabe side bado den yo mejan lo de sambo ye de pera jin me da de chuge je chewang ga ge ma de na be jo da ye de je ge zo wa de me ze be de jere se time kin be ombo jan be ya kan jen je be zo ge zong ga ba lo sang cha be sha la so wa de. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lama.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
Thank you. Okay,
Cảm
thank
ơn
you.
thầy.
Yeah.
Con cảm ơn thầy, cảm ơn ban tổ chức, cảm ơn mọi người đồng tu ạ. A Di Đà Phật.
Thank you, thank you.
Cảm ơn thầy.
Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Cảm ơn thầy, cảm ơn ban tổ
we are
chức, cảm
done.
ơn đồng tu ạ.
We're done, Hannah. Need to on.
Xin cảm ơn mọi người. Hẹn gặp mọi người lại tuần sau ạ.
Yeah, done.